Welcome to the I Put It To You podcast, the podcast where we put the questions on the table, we unpack the facts and answer the questions that you really want to know. Joining me today in the hot seat is my colleague Lezanne from our Deceased Estates Department, and we will be discussing everything wills related. Welcome, Lezanne.
Thank you, Cecilia. Hi, good day, everyone.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining me. Now, let's be honest, Lezanne. The last thing anybody willingly wants to talk about is death.
Obviously.
However, it's the inevitable. It will happen to us all, and we need to be prepared for that day when it comes.
Absolutely.
We don't know when that day comes, but we need to be prepared.
100%.
So, let's get into it. Sit back, relax, grab your coffee, and let's get going. So, Lezanne, I put it to you.
Okay, 100%. I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much. Give it to me.
What constitutes a valid will in South Africa?
Well, first of all, it should be an absolute written document in terms of the Wills Act. The documentation must be a written, physical, it can be a written documentation, it can be a typed documentation, but the testator or the testatrix should then sign each and every document at the end of the page as well as the end of the document.
Yes.
And the biggest concern is most of the people don't know that it should be dated. And the reason for it to be dated is to, at the end of the day, establish which was the latest version of that will.
Yes.
And then together with that, there should be two independent, non-beneficial witnesses signing on the will.
Yes.
And if that is not the case, then that documentation can be illegally seen by the Master of the High Court.
And there will be queries.
Absolutely, there will be queries.
So the most important thing, will always in writing,
Yes.
signed by two competent
Yes.
witnesses.
Yes.
And then people don't know this, but a competent witness can be anybody from the age of 14.
14
If you are 14 years old, you
Yes.
can witness a will for it to be valid.
Yes, 100%.
So let's say, okay, we said competent witnesses, that's 14 years old, but how important is a valid will, even for young people? And now I'm not talking about young people in the sense of, let's say, the 14-year-old, okay? But young people getting married now. Why is that so important?
The biggest thing is with a will, it's to establish what should happen to your assets after date of death. Most of us have wishes, and the wishes is then taken into consideration only once there is a valid will in place.
Yes.
And most of the people don't understand how important it is, because family conflict is a constant...
It's a real thing.
It's a problem, and for it to be not seen like a family problem at the end of the day, I would say, and I would suggest that is the thing that should be taken into consideration.
Yeah.
What is your wishes? What do you want with your vehicle? A stupid thing is, what must happen to my vehicle? What must happen to my assets? And if you do not put it in writing, how should the people left behind, your loved ones, understand or know what must happen at the end of
In the end, the will gives you the power to decide what your wishes. That's what it is. What must happen to my assets when it needs to be distributed.
100%.
Yeah. So let's say you have a valid will now. A lot of people ask me, how often should I update that will for it to remain valid?
I would say that a will is valid since the day that you sign it. That will is valid. The only time that I would suggest you do amend your will is if you get married, if you have children, because sometimes it stipulates that you only have one child, and you do not recommend that there is other children in that will.
Yes.
I would suggest updating it by that time, but the will is always valid. Since the day that you sign it, it's a valid will.
Yes.
Amendments should only happen. Let's say that your beneficiary was your mom and dad, but both of them passed on.
Yeah.
You will have to get a new beneficiary, and that's the reason why you only amend it at that point in time. So that's my suggestion. Don't update it on a yearly basis if it's not necessary. If your beneficiaries or anyone in there, if your executor is still the remainder, why would you want to change it?
Yeah,
it's
so
a valid document.
Basically, after any big life event.
Yes.
My simple thing that I tell people is you update your will after a big life event. Like you said, the death of a parent, if they were a beneficiary.
Yeah.
If people sometimes forget because they are so caught up in when they get divorced.
Yes.
That's the last thing
That's
they
the last
think about. They're just like, I want this divorce settled. And they forget, I actually still have a will in our safe that the beneficiary is the person they just got divorced from.
Exactly. And then what happens to you if it is that you pass on now, then your divorced spouse still gets everything because you did not think of amending your will at that point.
There's that 3-month grace. I don't want to say grace period. I'm not too sure. It's 3 months after you pass away and your ex-spouse is still the beneficiary. It still goes to them, or how does that work?
Yeah, 100% right. There is a 3-month period specifically set out. I think it's specifically a 90 days that we stipulate as a clause in the will. So in that 3 months period, I would suggest update your will in that time frame as soon as possible normally, but in that 3 months time frame, I think it's more than enough time for you as a person then to amend your will. I would much rather do that. Contact your legal professional or your agent or whoever was the first one to have your will. I would say just update it. That's the most important part of everything.
When we have the will and so forth, there's always mistakes. I like to ask people that deal with this on a daily basis. I say, Lezanne, what is one of the most common mistakes people make when drafting their will? Their own will. Because I had a client yesterday that came in here and he only signed his own will. It was in terms of Islamic law. So there's some different stuff that's applicable there too. But he still needs to, competent witnesses and so forth.
Everything.
So we had to do it all over again for him. So what is the one mistake you see people make when they draft their own will? Let's say they did draft it, they signed it with 2 competent witnesses. What other mistakes do you see people make?
Well, obviously they don't date it. You can, most of the times it's not a dated will, which makes the will not valid at all. So we do get that. And sometimes what happens is that the witnesses that signed the will is one of the beneficiaries in the will. You cannot nominate someone in a will or mention a person in a will and then that person sign the will. At the end of the day, the master will query it and you can forfeit your inheritance because of the fact that you signed as a witness.
I want to add on to that. One thing I've also seen happen is you draft your own will, it's signed, you know the basics, you dated it, it's signed and so forth, but now you pass away and you forgot to tell anybody where that will is. You've had that numerous times. I've had it. Our phone rings and I say, hello, I think my dad had his will, I think. So that's one mistake. Tell people where your original will is.
I would suggest that's the first thing. The moment that you sign your will, obtain a copy of the will. Make sure that it is in a safe place. Normally with us as lawyers, we have a safe where your will is kept in. And we also give a letter to our clients confirming it so that they can pass it on to any of their beneficiaries, confirming that the will is in our safe. Most of the time what happens is, if a will is lost, unfortunately then there isn't a will. And then at the end of the day you have to work in accordance with the interstate law of succession, and
that's the thing.
That is such a problem because you don't get to have your wishes done as you would have in your will.
That's a very important question to answer is, now we know there was a will, but it's either lost or destroyed. What happens with it? Like you said, interstate.
Interstate, and the biggest concern is with interstate, we have family conflict all the time. That's one of the most problematic things that I am currently experiencing, unfortunately.
And if your will is destroyed, the original is destroyed or lost, and but you have a copy of it, will the master, is there a way that we can ask the master, we have a copy of this will, there's a way around it.
There is. I would always suggest, even if you have a copy, provide it to the master. From my side, I will always provide it to the master. But unfortunately, the last say is with the master.
Yes.
And it does happen sometimes that it's not a document that the master then accepts. And I mean, then it's court cases. You must bring a court application. It's a lot of cost, which you don't have to have if it is that your will is in a safe and secure place.
Yeah.
And always on my side, I suggest, please inform your family members where you have a will. If it is with a bank, if it is with an agent, if it's with an accountant, just confirm it so that you know where to look for your will. But I mean, if the will is not there, at the end of the day, the master of the High Court is the only one who have the decision to make and say, we'll accept this, or sorry, we do not accept this.
And then we go on to legal proceedings that are costly and lengthy.
Yes.
Another thing, we need to equip the people. That's my goal with this podcast, is for the average guy just to have a look and say, "Geesh, I didn't do this. Let me approach them." People also don't know what to do if they have minor children. Can you, when you draft your will, you have somebody draft your will, a professional, can you appoint guardians in your will?
Oh, absolutely. And that's what I always feel a will is. It's really such an important documentation, because you have that ability to say, listen, I want this person to look after my child. This person has been loving my child for so many years. It's an aunt, it's my sister, it's whoever it should be, but you obviously make that decision. You only have the ability to confirm it once it is in writing in your will. And I mean, then you have a secure peace of mind to say, listen, my aunt will look after my child because she's the best person who can look after my child. So yes, obviously you can nominate. A guardian is nominated in your will. And it's in writing. And I mean, at the end of the day, the will is signed by you as well as with your witnesses, confirming that you are satisfied with that person looking after your child.
It comes back to your wishes. Your wishes
your
after
wishes,
death.
That's exactly.
The one thing that people have a misconception about, not a misconception, they think that, but I'm married. If I die, my husband can just look after the children. It's once again, as I think, you can pass away together. That's unfortunate, and it's the harsh reality people need to start facing and knowing that if, yes, you have a will, but now, unfortunately, you are in a car crash, your husband, the wife and the husband pass away together, and two children is left behind, Then the court decides.
Exactly.
Usually it's also a family member, but then it doesn't come down to your own wishes that you wanted. So I just want to, so important.
It's mostly important. I mean, what would you want for your children, especially while you are still in life? I mean, I would want the best for my children.
Obviously.
And that's why will is so important, especially in a manner like this. Both persons pass away simultaneously. If your husband's not there or whoever is not there anymore. And that's why I'm coming back to the amendment part. Let's say that person that you appoint as a guardian in your will, let's say that person pass on. You must obviously think of who's going to look after my children now. So that's also when you can do an amendment. It is super important to always have that in mind and thinking about the day of tomorrow. I mean, not one of us, as you said from the beginning, knows that what's my last day. And you want your children, especially, not only your assets, but your children. I mean, they are an asset to you. You should know what must happen and who's going to look after them and what's going to be the best way and who's going to be the best person. So nomination, absolutely. Guardian, I would say that's one of the biggest reasons.
Now, this is really quite interesting. Another decision that you need to make is appointing your executor in your will. How do you choose your executor?
Okay, that's always such a nice question. So most of the time people think my executor should be my brother or my sister.
Which can be.
And they can think anyone can be. It's normally somebody who's just a loved one. But in my opinion and in my experience, I would not suggest you only having someone that you know be the executor.
Yes.
Remember, the biggest thing is that it's a trustworthy person that should handle your finances. Come to think of it, it's your finances after you pass on.
You in essence go like this, take all my assets, sort it out for me.
So for me especially, I would always suggest having an executor that is someone who is very equipped, who's skilled, who's trustworthy.
Skilled, that's the most important
That's the
thing.
most important thing. I would even say, let's say you want your brother, sister, mom, dad, whoever wants to be appointed, go executor them with someone who is skilled.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, you have to work every day. We are dealing with this. We are executors. We know what administration is going into an estate.
Yes.
If you are not skilled, how are you going to help the estate to be wounded up?
You don't have the knowledge, the skilled legal professional has to deal with this. The executor is there to administer your estates and act in your best interest.
Absolutely.
That's the most important thing. Look, we said anybody can be an executor. Anybody can be appointed as an executor. However, there's some requirements that need to be met.
Yes.
Who cannot be an executor? We need to tell the listener, because we don't want them to make the mistake to appoint. Let's say I'm a single mom. I have 2 minor children. I'm bequeathing all my estates to them. And I'm like, Japie, jy is nou die executeur. Who cannot be the executor in my will?
Well, definitely not a minor child.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest things that people think that my child can be. No. So neither a minor child can be appointed. A person who is capable, obviously, you cannot be, you have to be sound of mind to be appointed as an executor. And sometimes it does happen that people who's insolvent comes in, and that is a question, but yes, you can still get the appointment as an executor.
But who needs to allow that appointment?
Only the master of the
Master of the High Court.
Yes.
And then when an insolvent person does get appointed as an executor, we come back to that very important thing. The master will then require a bond of security.
Yes. The
Just to be safe, on the safe side.
Yes, 100%. I'm happy with that. Bond of security, the master can always pop the question, and then you have to allow the bond of security, and you must obtain it on behalf of the estate to secure the assets. So yeah, it does happen.
If we go back now and we think of, the signed will, competent witnesses, can the executor sign as a witness in your will?
Well, unfortunately, yes, they can. They can, but it's not prescribable. The reason therefore is, once again, the conflict that can come with it. Yes. So what can happen is a family member can say it's conflict of interest.
Absolutely, it is conflict.
And the master of the High Court can do exactly the same.
Yeah.
So it's not something that is not allowed. It is allowed, but it's definitely not something I discourage it. Always discourage it. Yeah. Once your name is mentioned in a will, do not sign as a witness. That's exactly what the master will require.
We're going to get into a deep discussion about this, because I have it as no, the executor cannot. We need to clarify this now, because you said conflict of interest. I said absolutely never. An executor should never, must never, not allowed to, ever sign as a witness on your will, because you are appointed in that will and you are going to gain a benefit.
And that's why I always say I discourage it. However, it is allowed. But if you really come to think of it, why should it be allowed? It's not something that I would allow, especially you as an executor. At the end of the day, get a fee for the work that you do.
Our executor's remuneration.
Exactly.
You are a
so
beneficiary.
Why is it that you would want them to sign as a witness? You never ever do that. I always discourage it. However, it is allowable.
Okay, that's very interesting, Lezanne. Because but never ever do it.
Never.
It's like you said earlier, having a beneficiary sign as a witness. It's also not allowed.
It is not allowed.
You shouldn't do that.
you're already benefiting from the will.
Yeah.
If you look at it like that, you as an executor is also benefiting.
100%.
So why is it that you would sign to something that you're already a benefit to?
100%. Yeah. The one thing that comes to my mind is a relationship with your executor. Now, I have a very strong opinion about this, and I tell my clients that on a daily basis when we speak about wills and stuff, I tell them, where's your will? And then they say, and I won't be mentioning names.
Yes, don't mention names.
I don't want to
please.
get into trouble, but they tell me certain institutions has their will. Why is it important to have a more personal relationship with the executor you appoint? Let's not talk about the brother, sister, mother, or whoever. We're now talking about the legal professional. You are saying, in your will, as my executor, I appoint Joachim Frederik de Beer. Why is it so important to have a personal relationship with Joachim Frederik de Beer?
For me personally, I feel that I must walk a path with my clients. I need to understand what is my client's wishes. So for me to have my client in my office, having a relationship with him, it gives me the opportunity to understand what's happening in their finances. First of all, I want to know why you have this, why you have that. Do you have life cover? Is your pension fine? For me, it is a relationship that I built with my client. If you go to an institution where they have no idea who you are,
yes,
how are they going to assist you
and understand your circumstances?
Exactly, and do your estate the way that you would want it to be done if they do not have a relationship with you.
I have a client now, and it's a corporate company, and I have nothing like, yes, there's corporate companies that they do the work properly. I'm not saying anything bad about that, but the individual appointed to assist to administer the will doesn't understand her circumstances.
True.
She's coming to my office and sitting here crying and telling me, these people don't know what I'm going through. And then I tell her again, that's why if we update your will, because her husband passed away, if we update your will, and we did update her will, we are now the executors, I tell her, you have a relationship with me, you have my cell phone number, you can WhatsApp me. It's all about that personal interaction. Coming to our office, sitting down here, we sit around this table, we see a lot of people crying, and we can, it's emotions, it's a stage of your life that you need to go through, and having a corporate company and people that don't understand you, that's the importance of why you need to know your executor.
Absolutely, I do agree with you. There's so many clients walking in and out of the office on a daily basis, and at the end of the day, most of them you have a good relationship with. You understand their situation, you understand where they come from, you know the mom and dad, maybe they are the people who is inheriting. You know the mom and dad off by heart.
Yes.
You understand their situation, which means it's not just you as my client that I must understand. I get to build an emotional relationship with my client, with the ease that's involved with the minor children. I see them grow up. I know that they are coming from school. Oh, this child is now 14 years of age. Well, oh, your child is 21 years of age.
It's all about personal relationships.
It's all about a personal relationship. So I would always suggest have that relationship with your client.
Makes it a bit easier on you when the day comes.
Yeah, and especially you know a little bit more. Sometimes they do open up about financials, or they want advice on how to do this or that. You know that there was a situation in their life. It's such an emotional and not only emotional path that you walk with them, but you get to understand where they are coming from.
Absolutely.
And getting to know what's happening really in their physical life at the moment. So walking a path.
The people need to know that the executor plays a very important role in administering the estate. Now, it's one of the tough questions that always get asked is, but you talk about executor remuneration. Remuneration means cash.
It's cash. 1 second. Yep.
What is an executor allowed to charge for administering the will?
So in terms of the administration of the Citizens Act, it is allowable 3.5%
Of the total?
of the total assets
Yeah.
in your estate, and then after death income 6% of the.
People forget about that. You deal mostly with deceased estates. You are a head of department with Yogi, assisting, and you get to deal with that a lot more. But people forget about that. If there's a property that now needs to be rented out, we deal with that. We assist you with the lease agreement and so forth. But 6% of that income we are allowed to also take.
Yes, and you will not believe how many times it is that there isn't provision for that type of administrative cost.
That's the very unfortunate part. But we live in South Africa. Everything is negotiable.
Yes.
When can people start talking about negotiating about that 3.5%?
Always prior to death.
Yeah.
You cannot expect me as an appointed executor once the person passes away to come and negotiate that.
Yeah.
My suggestion is always, while you are my client and we have such a good relationship, talk to me while we are still in the process of drafting your will.
Yeah.
And then get to a point where it is negotiable. It's always negotiable.
Yeah.
But remember, there's such a lot of paperwork. There's such a lot of work going into administering an estate. But it is negotiable. But you, as my client, must have the opportunity and the feeling of allowing me. So that's why we have a relationship.
Yes.
If we have that relationship, you are going to be able to speak to me and say, listen, 3.5% is a lot. Huh?
But when we talk about this 3.5% and it being negotiable, the one time I really say, yes, we can start. People don't understand the volume of work that goes into it. It's not just giving the death certificate, drafting an L&D, sending it to there's a lot more going on in the background. Yes. I always tell people the 3.5% really gets to the point of let's start negotiating if your assets in your estate exceeds a certain amount.
Yes,
because if we are dealing with an estate with, let's say, 600,000, 3.5% might be a lot to that person. It's in essence not a lot.
It's not a lot.
But if we start dealing with an estate with 27 million, then we start negotiating.
I would say absolutely yes.
That's the normal thing to do. So, but 3.5% is the general amount that we can charge, 6% on the income, and it starts getting negotiable.
Yes, you can. I'm always open to that point, because remember, we have estates that's obviously small, and then we have humongous estates.
Yeah.
So those big ones,
makes a difference. Yeah.
It makes a big difference. Yeah. And I mean, the work that is put into an estate, it's really not little. It's a lot of work.
The more assets, the more work that needs to be done.
Absolutely true, yeah.
So one thing a lot of people say is, I don't have a lot, so I don't have a will. Do you require to have a certain amount of assets before you can actually draft a will?
No.
It makes me a bit...
It's like really, I think most of the people is like, but I don't have assets, why should I have a will?
Yeah.
Have a will. From the age of 16 years old, I mean, you have a phone, you have a digital something, you have jewelry that my mom or dad gave me 5 years ago. From the age of 16, please do get your will. It doesn't mean that I have a little, I don't need a will. You still need a will. No assets is too little.
Yes.
That's my suggestion. I would always say you can have a will no matter if you feel that you do not have any assets.
There was a client here the other day, she had a first consultation and she said, we don't have anything. I said, but no, what do you have? No, we just have a car. That's an asset.
That's an asset. You have furniture. Where do you sit on? Where do you keep your food in? You have a fridge. So that's assets. And the moment that you have anything like that, yet a will.
Yeah. So we talked about that, the assets, and that you don't need a lot.
You don't.
You don't. Just even if you don't have anything, just have a will. It makes the process so much easier.
Yes.
But assets does play a part. So when does the amount of assets start making a difference in administering an estate? Right, let's go right to the start.
Okay, from where I can tell you is people who say that they don't have a lot of assets and they feel that it's small. The difference is from 0 to 250,000 Rand. It's a small estate, but still it's an estate that you must obtain a letters of authority for.
And we refer to that as a Section 18?
A Section 18(3) estate, yes. And what's nice about that estate, it's really, you feel it's small, but still there's administration. It's still a reporting of an estate. You still need to deal with that estate, but it's not the process as if you would work with an estate of more than 250,000. So the more than 250,000 Rand estate is a lot more administrative.
Yes.
But yeah, that's where the 3.5% extra come in. On my side, the 18(3)s, I feel that you don't have that much assets as you would feel that you have. So on that specific point, I don't work on too much of an executor's fee. I don't do the 3.5%. I feel that it's my duty towards the community to assist.
And the thing is, the difference between when it's 250,000 Rand and less, a letter of authority gets issued by the master.
Yes. And what's nice about that, it's not the whole estate process that needs to run through. You only obtain your letters of authority, which gives a certain person authority, which is your representative, and then assisting with whatever the assets is that you have in that point.
They can then do everything on their own. As long as they have that original letter of authority, they can come to our office, we will certify it, and they can approach the banks, close the bank accounts.
And put a vehicle on their name, that type of things, So that the administration part is not as much as an estate that is more than 250,000.
So the administration process does differ from letter of authority to letter of executorship.
Yes, absolutely. So once it is that there's an estate that's the value is more than 250,000, it's an actual administrative estate. And you have to also do exactly the same reporting as you would have done with a small estate. But what happens is once you get your letters of executorship then from the master, there is a process that needs to run. And the process normally starts off, if I can explain it to you, it's you must place a first advertisement in the local government gazette as well as in the Beeld. Then from there on, you must open an estate late account. You must write to all the creditors, and especially to see if there's alternative assets which the children
didn't know about.
They didn't know about. So we work about that. For the first 30 days, there is the opportunity for anyone, if there is a claim against the estate, that they can lodge it. And then from there, we do a second advertisement, but only once the master accepted the liquidation and distribution account. So that's why I left the liquidation distribution account till last. It's a lot of work going into that
very
specific
important
document.
When we tell people the L&D is getting submitted with the master, then they're like, what is that?
What is that?
So that's just listing everything. So when you have a letter of authority, that's not the case. And L&D doesn't get drafted and submitted to the master.
Yes, you're 100%. So the liquidation and distribution account is very intense documentation that requires a lot of physical administration of saying what is my assets, what's my liabilities, what is the administration cost, which include this 3.5%. Where with the smaller one, you don't need to do the liquidation and distribution account. That documentation entails a lot of information, and it's my duty to stipulate that as a skilled person I need to be the agent, and I mean, not a person from the street will know how to do that. That's the thing
I want to ask you. Would you recommend somebody attempting to administer an estate where a letter of executorship, so the estate is worth more than 250,000, to do it themselves, and is it allowed?
Well, it is allowed, but my suggestion in such a case might be, let's say I cook for my children every day and they enjoy the food and my husband enjoys the food, and then all of a sudden they all require me to do a Gordon Ramsay's 5-meal course for them.
5-star course.
I will have no idea what to do. I will
get
do
that.
the food, I will prepare it, but I can promise you it's going to be either burnt or tasteless, or
Yes.
I'm not going to use the correct, I'm not going to use the correct
Absolutely.
butter. So what's the skill that I have? Gordon Ramsay's going to fire me if I prepare that meal. It's the
Yes.
same with administering an estate.
Absolutely.
If I have the skill to be Gordon Ramsay, I can do my physical work.
You need to be knowledgeable about doing
You
that.
have to have
And
the knowledge.
we come back to that very important person we speak about, the master of the High Court.
Yes.
You can try and administer, but sometimes the master will tell you, listen, Lezanne, you cannot do this on your own.
Get
somebody
someone to assist you.
Who's that somebody usually?
Well, obviously it should be somebody with skills.
Yes.
I would always suggest an attorney or an accountant.
That's the two.
That's the two parts that I feel that is definitely. And remember that they have the skills to do that part and understand the legally binding way how to do it. So that's the two people I would say, yes.
Yeah, this is so much information, Lezanne. I really want the people to know that we have to take this conversation a bit further in the next episode, where we need to speak to our financial advisors, because we only touched on the drafting of a will, and I didn't think it will be so much information, but when you go sit back and you need to tell the layperson, listen, there's a lot going on that you need to know. Yes. So I want to extend this episode into a series of episodes. Maybe we work with very good financial advisors and people who assist with the SARS DC compliance. People don't know that. Submitting your SARS is important, people.
Please do
that. It. So I really want to thank you. So we can go on and talk about estate planning with that financial advisors and so forth, so equipping the people even a little bit more. So this is really just the tip of an iceberg we are dealing here with. So thank you so much for the information. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
I really want to say we are so lucky in South Africa to have freedom of testation.
Oh, absolutely. I'm agreeing with you on that.
That
Cecilia.
it gives me such a good feeling that knowing we live in a country where that is something we can enjoy, because freedom of testation is you decide what happens to your own assets. That's so important. So thank you so much. But before we go, I know we talked about death and getting a will and so forth, but I always have a few rapid fire questions for my guests. So just say the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
Let's go. Testate or intestate?
Oh, definitely testate.
To bequeath your shares or sell your shares?
Oh no, sell. Please sell.
You create a trust for the minor, or you just bequeath the assets to an adult heir?
No, a trust, create a trust.
Okay. Draft your own will or have an attorney do it for you?
Please let your attorney do it for you.
To store your will in your bedside table or in our safe?
Definitely in my safe, it's so much better.
Name your children by name in your will, or just say in equal shares to my children?
No, I feel it's much better to appoint each child by name. I feel it's better, but still you can say children to be born. But that's important. That's so important, children to be born, because what if you do not amend your will?
Exactly. How big is the biggest estate that you've dealt with in rand value? Don't say the names, just the value.
Sure. Let me think. Yes, there was such a lot of them. Definitely more than 20 million.
Oh,
definitely.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And what is the most bizarre clause you've come to read in a will?
Goodness. There was such a lot of them. Okay, maybe the one where there was one where the person was like, they don't feel that they were valuable enough. They didn't want anything. They didn't want service after death. They didn't want anyone to know that they'd passed on.
Oh, that's so sad.
So it was
actually.
for me more sad than bizarre, I would say. Bizarre is more like the things where
Fighting
I
about
get,
dogs.
well, we have someone specifically who wanted a trust for their dog.
That's bizarre.
It's
Lezanne.
bizarre, but it is something that you can do because it's one of your wishes.
Crazy
Very
stuff.
crazy, yeah.
Every year in South Africa, we have something called Wills Week.
Yes.
Let's quickly elaborate on that. I know we do, as the Beer and Klaasen, participate in it on a yearly basis.
Yes.
Last year, we had an outreach to Zambela, and it was very successful.
It was very successful. I have to tell you, there was such a lot of people who came in who've never in their life ever had a will.
Old people.
Some of the people over 80 years of age
Yeah.
came in and saw us, and we assisted them with their wills.
Do we have any plans this year again?
Yeah, most probably. I mean, the Beer and Klaasen is obviously there to give a service to the community.
And remember, it's not just the people need to know that it's not just if we say we are having like an outreach, we're going to Zambela. Last year we did that. So in September, I'm not just too sure about the date. It's around the 14th.
It's normally in a week.
It's a week. It's a whole week. You can Google Wills Week. You're more than welcome to come into our office to say, we know you guys are participating in Wills Week. I want my will drafted. Please, can I see somebody? And then we don't charge you any fee. We come, we have a consultation, we draft the will, and we sign it and we keep it. We give you a copy to keep in a safe place. We keep the originals. So
and maybe I should also just confirm, most of the banks, and I'm not going to say, most of the banks do charge the client a yearly premium for keeping their will.
That's important.
And at
We
Beer and
don't do
Klaasen,
that.
we do not charge you any fee for keeping your original will in our safe.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Lezanne, once again for joining me today. I really appreciate you and the time you always make for me when I pop my head into your office and say, Lezanne, I don't know. So thank you so much for
Such
always
a big
being
pleasure.
there.
Always a pleasure.
Well, this is us for the episode. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, next time we are back, I said we are going to do something with a financial advisor. I'm very excited to equip you. This is the goal of this podcast. So until next time, remember to like, subscribe, share with your people, comment any questions you have. I see you next time. Bye-bye.